Hello and welcome to the Industry 4.0 Club. I'd like to wish a good local time to everyone. Also referred to as the I-40 Club, our main purpose is to engage diverse worldwide talent on a wide range of educational Industry 4.0 topics. We do this by hosting respectful, thoughtful, and interdisciplinary conversations. This is Women in Manufacturing, our Tuesday conversation with the focus on tech and manufacturing. In this space, we discuss the perspectives and challenges of women at work and at home. In this series of Discovering Women in Manufacturing, we're taking a look at unique roles in the industry, and our topic of discussion for today is discovering product development more than manufacturing. I'm Carol Mitchell-Lin, an Industry 4.0 Club co-founder, and for over 6 years, I've been creating content for I-40 adoption in manufacturing. When I'm not supporting my fellow co-founders, I'm a content marketing specialist at Fuse Data. Fuse Data is a startup in Toronto, Canada, where we help enterprise teams transition from the spreadsheet scramble to easy-to-access, meaningful analytics. First, I'd like to introduce my co-host and fellow I-40 Club co-founder, Grace Donovan. Hi, Grace.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're tuning in from. Thanks so much, Carol. As Carol mentioned, I'm also a co-founder of the Industry 4.0 Club, and I currently serve as the executive director of the Rural Engagement and Vitality Center at Eastern Oregon University. My background is really working with entrepreneurs, specifically in the manufacturing industry, whether that's mining or automotive. So I've been very adjacent to manufacturing for quite a long time. And super excited to have Mackenzie with us today.
Yes, thanks, Grace. Pleased to have as our special guest, Mackenzie Meyers. Mackenzie is a product development engineer at Trane Technologies. Hi, Mackenzie.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon.
We really appreciate you taking time to be with us today. And I know you're busy, so thanks.
Yeah, super excited.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and kick things off. We're going to put you front and center. And we'd love if you could share with us and the audience a little bit about you and kind of the journey that has brought you to where you are today with Trane Technologies.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Southwest Michigan. I grew up on an old dairy farm with 3 younger brothers, so I'm the oldest and the only female in my family. And I attended Michigan State University and graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering. And as far as my kind of journey with Trane Technologies, during school, I had a lot of different internships with Trane Technologies all across the country. And after graduation, I decided to do a rotational program that was 2.5 years long, where you rotate through different business units within the company and different locations as well.
That's awesome. So you had a number of positions like a number of internships throughout college, and we'll kind of dive into that. I'm curious to know what perhaps sparked your interest in engineering, because did you go to MSU knowing that you wanted to do engineering?
I knew I wanted to do some sort of engineering, and I knew mechanical engineering was kind of the most broad and would kind of give me the most opportunities throughout college and post-grad as well. In high school, I actually shadowed a couple different engineers at various companies, actually in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I know we were talking earlier about it. And that kind of just really sparked my interest. I liked what they were doing. They were product development engineers and design engineers. And so that kind of sparked my interest from there.
Yeah, what kind of products were they developing?
Office furniture. So it was with a furniture company.
Furniture industry in Grand Rapids, okay.
And then trash cans, oddly enough. So they were doing a lot of testing and validating trash cans, up and down over your curb before it breaks, before you have to get a replacement. So very interesting and intricate things that you would never think about, trash cans.
Yeah. And so I've never thought about that, but that's good. They test for things like that. Manufacturing kind of continues to surprise me because there's so much that is a part of this industry. There's so much that people don't often see. So
Mhm.
I really love like hearing these little tidbits. So while you were at college, you joined, so you were part of a number of engineering groups, including SWE, and so which is Society of Women Engineers. And so I'm curious, like how you got connected and how that experience, with women engineers in college kind of really shaped your experience in college in engineering and then even after school.
Yeah, Society of Women Engineers was a huge part in my success of becoming an engineer just because there really isn't a lot of women in this field. And through that, I got to meet a bunch of different engineers that are going through the same thing that I'm going through, whether it's mechanical engineering or chemical engineering. So it really broadened the network. And through SWE is how I found Trane Technologies too. We had a career fair that we hosted at Michigan State University, and that really exposed me to a lot of different companies as well. So it's definitely a key takeaway of how I was successful and found the company that I'm at now.
Awesome. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you did a 2-year rotational program at Trane,
Mhm.
and this actually fascinates me because it's a atypical way of onboarding new employees to have them come on and then have them move around for 2 years.
Yeah.
Definitely something I never really heard of. I'd like to know more about it and maybe what really sold you on the idea, and also if you had any reservations about it as well.
Yeah, of course. So in school, I guess I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do with my mechanical engineering degree after college. And just because mechanical engineering is so broad and you have so many different opportunities and avenues that you could take, as far as the rotational program, I think the biggest reservation that I had was moving around all the time because as soon as you get comfortable with your job, with the location, you're making friends outside of work as well. You have to move to the next job and the next location. But as far as being part of the rotational program, you're in the same boat as everyone else in the program. So you really get to meet a lot of different people and different backgrounds that are also going through the same thing that you are. We're all rotating around. We're all similar in age. We all, recently graduated. So I think the greatest benefit from the program that I found at Trane Technologies is the access to leaders in the company. It is a leadership development kind of program. And so you're assigned a mentor in the beginning that's a leader in the company, and you get to meet so many different other leaders as well through different networking events. And just networking is really, really a big part of the rotational program as well, because you network to find different jobs, to find different locations within the company. So you really have to structure yourself up well to network and meet a bunch of different people within the company.
How many times did you move overall? Like, did you have to move far?
So with the company, I think I have moved 5 times, including my internships and things like that. Full time, I have moved twice, and the first move was from Michigan to Wisconsin, so that wasn't too far for me. But then the next move was Wisconsin to Texas, and that was a bit of a different experience. Yes, and I moved mid-July down here, so it was the peak of summer when I moved, so it was a hot one.
Yeah. I just remember moving to Michigan in mid-February, so similarly jarring, but opposite season.
Yes.
Yeah. Mild times to move, I think, are preferable, but we can't always control that.
Right.
So I'm curious to know, so during your 2-year rotation, what maybe you held a different number of different positions. The idea is to kind of expose you to a lot of different areas within the company. What did you learn kind of about yourself, and perhaps narrowing down that focus of a very broad mechanical engineering degree and where you wanted to focus that a little bit more, because it's super important to learn what you like, but equally as important to learn what maybe is not a best fit for you or what doesn't play to your strengths or skill set. So I'm curious if you had some good experience finding kind of a pathway and a channel that you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, definitely. That's again the whole point of the rotational program. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I found things that I didn't like, and that was my first job, and it was very technical, and everyone on the team that I was on had PhDs in something very, very specific, coils specifically and things like that. And I find myself a technical person, but not always that technical. So that was something I really struggled with. And in the midst of COVID being kind of removed from the office as well with my resources, made it also challenging as well. But then I got to learn in the manufacturing side of things when I switched to a cross-functional side that I really enjoy the people. I enjoy the cross-functionality of roles and things like that. I learned that I am way more hands-on, and I knew that in college, but I thought maybe full-time that would be a little bit different, but I found that my manufacturing and the product development side of things is where my strongest interest lies. And so that's what I found in my last rotation was a furnace product development engineer, and that's where I decided to stay after the program as well.
Awesome. Well, you just answered a question that Karen Rivera put in the chat. What was your favorite rotation? And she's also, first of all, super excited to have you in East Texas.
Yes, I love working with Karen.
All right, great. Glad to know that you guys already know each other. We had her on just a couple weeks ago, but she also wanted to know what is the most challenging rotation that you had at Trane Technologies during that program?
Yeah, I think the most challenging rotation that I had was that technical team that I worked on. And because you're working on our commercial side, so it's our water-cooled chillers, and you have the massive unit that's probably the size of the back end of the semi-truck. That's how we deliver them. And you have one specific piece of that product compared to on the residential side where I'm at now. I can touch the entire product itself and work on heat exchangers and work on, the control boards, all of those different things. So I was very specific with the brazed plate heat exchanger specifically for our commercial size unit. So that was very challenging to get through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As someone who's not an engineer, it would all be challenging. But it's, I think it's always good to challenge ourselves. And, you really come out learning that, hey, this is maybe not where I want to spend a lot of my time. And my skills are, really put to use. And if it sings to you and, is enjoyable, that's really what, anyone could ask for.
Yeah.
Now, as someone who also graduated recently, so you graduated college in 2019,
Yep.
I'm curious how your experience in college perhaps differs from like the real world in manufacturing. So a lot of the conversations that we've had with guests over the years are really around, how manufacturing is modernizing, how it's trying to shed the reputation of dirty, dangerous, and dark. And I think there's certain elements of that, but we've also seen just tremendous progress. And I'm curious what your experience has been in the industry versus in the classroom. And if you noticed a big difference or if you were really surprised by certain elements of the industry. A very broad question, but I'm kind of curious.
Yeah. I would say as far as the hands-on aspect that I learned in school through our different senior design classes where we had to physically make products ourselves, compared to the industries for, I guess, Trane specifically is pretty dirty as well. I had to wear gloves and safety glasses, bump cap, all that sorts of things when I was in the manufacturing role. So I would say that was a little bit more of a culture shock as well to work with the people actually working on the production line and just their depth of knowledge that they at their station or whatever they're specifically working on, that they have just as much knowledge as you do as an engineer, and sometimes they might even have a different insight of something that might work better for them. They're doing it for 8-10 hours a day, so it's really nice to have those conversations, and that's something that I think I learned in college as well, to ask for help when you need it and have those open conversations too with people.
Excellent. So in your role now as a product development engineer, so you mentioned you get a chance to speak with the folks on the front line and kind of get their feedback on, how this is really going to work on the line or how it's going to work in assembly and a whole bunch of reasons. They have a lot of excellent perspective, as you mentioned. I'm curious to know also how you guys are incorporating automation, into the products that you guys are building, development process in general. I mean, automation is really everywhere you look, but I'm curious specifically for your role, how it's really coming into play as you are building in these products and thinking about how they're going to get made.
Yeah, I think for my current role as a product development engineer, a lot of my responsibility now is to test and validate all of our new products that are coming out. So in our testing facility, there's just a lot of different variables that can affect the results that are happening from the testing that we are required by the government. So we're currently kind of trying to automate that testing process so it takes out a lot of that variability. So whether it's conditions in the room that we're in testing or the technician as well, just from experience, if you have a new technician versus an older technician that's been in the industry for a lot longer, just to make sure that we don't have any variability, and that will help run our tests a lot smoother when we submit them to the government agencies.
So a lot of that also sounds like, just kind of across the board, process standardization. So I'm curious, like, where that automation piece comes into play. Can you perhaps give us some specifics if you're able to?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is a lot of documentation and standard work that's what we have to automate, and that's what we submit to the government agencies is those physical test results. And so to have those automated and run through the tests specifically without any errors or anything like that with because that's more work for us, if we have to rerun testing or if the ambient air isn't exactly correct, then, we have to rerun those tests as well.
Okay. So a lot of digitization and just kind of working with whether that's AI or just kind of advanced learning modules to essentially help get that information to you guys a lot sooner. And again, reducing the variability. All right.
Yeah.
If I was had to translate it into layman's terms. Now, in addition to automation, I think sustainability is also a big part of that conversation, and just how is this, not only saving resources, but how is this making product development more and product performance more sustainable? If we look at the supply chain as well and kind of sustainability on that side, I'm curious to see how Trane Technology is focusing on that and working towards a more sustainable operation in the future.
Yeah, I think it's a big part. Sustainability is a large part of Trane Technologies and Trane specifically. And specifically at Trane Technologies, we do have a goal by 2030 to reduce our customer carbon footprint by 1 gigaton. And so that's something that's public that we publish on all of our websites and things like that. And we're doing that by increasing the efficiency in our buildings, in the homes, in transport, when, whether it's produce, vaccines, flowers, anything like that. And another big way that we're kind of doing that is by transitioning out of the high global warming potential refrigerants by 2030 as well. So that will help a lot with the reducing the carbon footprint by a gigaton.
All right. That's super exciting. And I think especially now, while we're in a bit of a heat wave situation across the country, everyone is a lot more conscious about, I think we're just beginning to see a lot more of this and the effects of climate change, as well as just like the draw on our infrastructure that we rely on. So it's great to see that, companies are committed to improving that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mackenzie. I'd like to go back to the Women's Employee Network that you mentioned I think it was in your introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're fairly familiar with Trane's Women's Employee Network from some of the guests that we've already had. But I'd like to know more about how it works, where you are there at your facility in Dallas, and how you've seen it in action and where you've seen it make a difference, whether it's for yourself or for anyone of your colleagues there.
Yeah. So being Trane Technologies, we do have a lot of different locations all over the country. So we have a women's employee network at majority of our large offices in person, along with a remote women's employee network too for the ones that might not be at our larger facilities. And so I'm one of the leads for our women's employee network specifically in Tyler, Texas. And then I actually just saw it in action, a few weeks ago. We have a partnership with Project Scientist. So Trane Residential, we hosted 50 girls from the ages of 4 to 12 at our facility to help them learn and engage with the STEM industry. And so with Trane, we have a kind of grant with Project Scientist and STEM education in general, that to help improve the education for those in underrepresented groups in manufacturing and the engineering space as well.
That's excellent. I like the idea of actually bringing people who are interested into the manufacturing facility. Um, I I like the idea of bridging maybe something STEM, which is done in the classroom, and then bridging that rather than just having that conversation around STEM, leaving it in the classroom and then it's said and done. I like that idea. Were you involved in that particular visit
Yeah,
to the
I was
facility?
also leading that it was a week long. So the girls were here from, I think it was 9 to 5 every single day, Monday through Friday. So a
Oh,
lot of
wow.
them, it was start to finish. We had them design a prototype arm in CAD, and then we had them also create their design in person as well. So they could physically have their prototype and learn the challenges that you might face of, versus CAD versus in person and making something physical as well. And just the girls, they were just so excited. I think a lot of people in STEM kind of, females specifically, lose interest around that middle school age group. So we want to keep them engaged and make sure they're interested so they continue, in college and think about a STEM field in the future.
I like the idea of participating in the field or on site and having
Mhm.
access to engineers, other women engineers, and feels more like it's reality when they're actually there.
Yeah.
And I think that's important if you're going to typically transplant girls from business and law into engineering. Maybe this might be the best way is to actually bring them there. And I think that's great. Great initiative. Did you have anything else to add? Wanted to add, Grace?
I think I appreciate you kind of sharing a little bit about like the feedback that you guys heard from the girls themselves. Because I think what you mentioned of we tend to see a little bit of disengagement around that age from girls, and so just having the ability to come in for a week and kind of have that experiential learning opportunity, in STEM field to see a product from start to finish, to see that whole process is really impactful. Um, in my day to day, every summer we bring together, high school kids to do science, like residential based education, and whether that's solar engineering or, like biology, it's really incredible for students to have that kind of full experience. And so I think that's really awesome that Trane has made a space to bring girls in specifically, in their facilities and make that happen, because that's truly an impactful experience. So it's really great to hear that that's an opportunity that's kind of, is that a specific program kind of with some high schools? Do you guys recruit for that? Or how does the word get out to, kids and families who might be interested in having their daughters participate?
Yeah, it's through Project Scientists will work with
Oh, yeah.
different local schools in the area. So we had it in our commercial location as well in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And so we also hosted it here in Tyler, Texas as well. So for Trane, we had, I think, 3 or 4 different locations where we were at hosting this event the week long as well. But as far as that, if other people would get interested, that would have to be through their school specifically.
Yeah. And so that program again is Project Science.
Project Scientist, yeah.
Yeah. Scientist. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Heard it here, folks. Go look it up. Find a chapter near you. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, thanks to an introduction from the Women in Manufacturing Association Texas chapter, that's how we got to meet you, Mackenzie. And I didn't really know that you're actually active in the chapter as well. So you're very busy. I mean, with the work that you're doing within Trane, and then the Women in Manufacturing Association is really something in aside. So you're working with women in a more general aspect in the state rather than just for Trane. I'm curious what your role is there, maybe how you got started, and how it feels like you're playing a part with the greater, at the more state level with women in manufacturing.
Yeah, I'm a part of the Women in Manufacturing membership committee. And so my goal specifically to work with that team is to help our Texas members feel welcome when they join and to make sure that they know all of the resources that women in manufacturing can offer, whether that's through their corporate members or, just an individual contributor as well. And just to have our Texas membership grow overall to build a wider community specifically. And I think how I feel like I'm playing a part to support women in manufacturing as well is just by creating this community for women, just to learn about other careers in manufacturing. Specifically in Tyler, I'm, trying to grow our community here as well, just of women to support and lean on each other. I think that's really important. And that's something I miss from being in college and having Society of Women Engineers. I also want that outside of college too. So not everyone has to feel like they're, alone or not going through the same thing, because I'm sure there's someone out there going through the exact same thing you are and is looking for advice or help as well.
What are some of the challenges you're having with increasing your membership? I know that the organization as a whole is very supportive of the chapters, and it's really the chapters is what makes gives it the organization its strength. But what are some of your challenges with trying to recruit new members?
I think finding, where they're at, what kind of manufacturing facilities they're working at, and getting the word out. If we do have in-person events, Karen and I specifically are trying to broaden that Tyler audience and making sure more women just show up to the events and meet each other and network. That's the biggest thing, is to network with each other and have that kind of bonding and understanding of you're all in this together.
Speaking of being all in this together, so a study that Women in Manufacturing put out in 2023, just looking at like the representation of women in the industry, we know that 1 in 3 manufacturing professionals and 1 in 4 leaders are women, but we haven't seen significant improvement from 2021. So I'm curious to know like what the discussion is kind of within Women in Manufacturing, or even with Trane, around some of the factors that are contributing to this, and then how you guys are working to like improve that representation.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of the lack of openness. I think that's something that women are, might be ashamed of, asking for help if they feel like they need help or might need some assistance with some things. But I think women are typically one or the only few females on their team. So women just need to support other women and being open about the obstacles that they might have faced. Because again, someone might be going through the same thing, and the success stories that people tell are just as important to hear from other women and learn from their successes as well, and their failures too. I think that's just important too.
Yeah, and I think it really depends on perhaps your pathway and career into manufacturing. I think from what you've shared with us, you had like the good fortune and also the proactiveness to really seek out a lot of women mentors in the industry and like get a lot of that feedback early. Are a lot of women like following, like in your experience, have a lot of your peers followed a similar path, or has it been sometimes harder for them to kind of find those mentors? Because because I'm curious if that's really having, like, what kind of impact that might have on someone who kind of joins manufacturing a little bit later or didn't have that exposure early on versus someone like you who kind of came in perhaps a little better armed and prepared for what the reality really was.
Yeah, I think it does kind of depend on the company specifically. I think Trane Technologies does a really good job about promoting their culture. And I think there's a difference of promoting culture and actually doing what you're saying you're doing. And Trane Technologies is really, really good about backing up what they say and do. And I think that's part of it, is that sometimes that, again, you kind of have to go in with that mindset of, you need to have a support group and a support community. I think I've been really lucky with Trane Technologies, but then also I wanted to widen that network and have that community here, specifically in Tyler. So I think that's part of the reason why I joined the Women in Manufacturing Texas, because I knew that they had a Tyler community as well.
Yeah. A lot of this reminds me of we've had a number of guests from Trane on women in manufacturing here at the Industry 4.0 Club, and one of the most like resounding pieces of advice that we've ever gotten from folks at Trane, and this I think goes back to Kristen Dickinson, was building a personal board of directors. And I think Trane really fosters an environment where that's possible. But I really loved that framework of just, and that's good advice for anyone in any profession, but especially where you might be like a little bit more vulnerable, or even have be kind of the only in the room, right? The only person of your identity. And having access to mentors and being in a company that promotes a lot of networking really helps you build that for yourself, which can be just really useful navigating any cultural challenges within work or the industry. And then, just working on professional development and seeing like how far you can go. So we love to share that whenever we get the chance, because we think it's a message that should be amplified for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, Mackenzie, this is the series we have you're part of. We've named it Discovering Women in Manufacturing. And we're asking all of our guests, what does discovering mean to you? And maybe take it a step further. And also, what does discovering women in manufacturing mean to you?
Yeah, I think just discovering to me is just trying new experiences and being open and learning about different backgrounds of people and cultures and, different companies as well. I think I'm always trying to learn more about others and their stories and where they came from and how they got to where they are today. I think discovering women in manufacturing is just really great, just to meet people like the both of you and meet others through women in manufacturing, and just learning about different potential careers, and just to continue these conversations, to learn from each other. And again, I think just the openness is the biggest part of being transparent about your story, your background, and, how you got to where you are today.
Thanks so much, Mackenzie. And I agree. I don't know if Grace can
Well, I was just gonna say, and speaking of that, attending conferences, which now have kind of opened back up since the end of the pandemic, is a great way to kind of enhance that network and broaden it. And you are going to be participating in a panel this upcoming October in Manufacturing X.O Southwest in Dallas. So that's going to be wait, I see. Is that, excuse me, October or November? Can you confirm?
November 15th.
November 15th. All right. I said October. That was my bad. So I'm just curious what you're going to be sharing about. Have you attended Manufacturing X.O before, and what you're excited for at the conference?
Yeah, this will be my first time speaking with X.O, and just kind of learning more about the other manufacturing and different potential product development engineers as well. And just really excited to meet some more people. Again, that's part of the discovering more people out there and having those connections and things like that.
Yeah. I will say, having participated in a number of different industry conferences, I have been so pleasantly surprised by any time I go to like a manufacturing expo and conference, of how excited people are to make a lot of those connections. I've been like pleasantly surprised by how collaborative a lot of those environments are. So highly encourage people to check out Manufacturing X.0, and especially if you're in the Texas area, to go meet some other folks face to face, because so often we've all built relationships in online communities, and attending conferences like this is a great way to kind of bring those connections to life in person in a new way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a few people from the Industry 4.0 Club planning to be there. We'll make sure that you get connected with them at least, so you could at least meet them and say hi.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to meet some more people in the Industry 4.0 Club.
Thank you. All right, so now that we're approaching the end of our conversation, usually, Mackenzie, we finish off with some final takeaways and thoughts, and I'll give you the last word. So let's start with Grace.
All right. I think it was just really great to hear from someone who graduated fairly recently, who's like a young woman coming into the industry, and what your experience has been, and that it's been so positive. That's not to say that it hasn't been without its challenges, but I think over time we're just going to see more and more women coming into the industry, and hearing that your experience entering has been so positive. And I think there's a lot of takeaways and perhaps practices that you've seen at Trane that you can take elsewhere if if your career takes you in new directions, and kind of bring that culture throughout manufacturing. I think that's one great thing that employee development can really do, especially if you start at a great place that sets you up for a lot of success. So I'm just very optimistic hearing your experience, and that was kind of my takeaway, even though we didn't necessarily touch on that directly.
Yeah, thank you.
I think my takeaway, and something that's actually stuck with me ever since we first met you, Mackenzie, was when you explained your experience with the rotational program. Not only is it, I think it's a great idea for new graduates, but it's not for anybody. So, it takes a little bit of courage and flexibility for someone to go through that experience. And I'd like to say, you did great to be open enough to try that out, and I hope it was worth all of the time that you put into that. So thanks. And so we'll leave you with the last word, Mackenzie.
Yeah, it was just great to meet both of you and kind of expand on our conversation earlier, and hopefully some other people listening could also learn some different things about Trane technologies and the rotational program. And I would recommend the rotational program to anyone if you're interested in it, thinking about it while you're in college, things like that. There's a lot of different companies that offer it, and just kind of have to find the best fit for you. And yeah, it was great to talk to everyone today.
Thank you. And where can folks get in touch with you? Would you recommend they reach out to you on LinkedIn or via email? We also had a question come in the chat. So just, hey, Kushal, thanks for your question. I would recommend wherever Mackenzie says that you can get in touch with her to direct that question there.
Yeah, I think email. My email is mackenzie.meyers@tranetechnologies.com. And LinkedIn is also a great way to connect as well.
All right. Well, you can click on her profile down below. Karen, of course, coming in. I would wholeheartedly agree with her. This has been a really great conversation to have with you. We wish you tremendous success, not only in your career, but also at the upcoming conference. And hopefully some of us at the Industry 4.0 Club will have the chance to meet you in person.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.
You too.
If you don't mind, we have a little bit of housekeeping.
Yeah, very good.
So if you like conversations like this, we encourage you to watch out for a couple more episodes in this Discovering Women in Manufacturing series. So we still have a couple more before we're done. And a short announcement. Actually, it's a promotional announcement for Women in Manufacturing Association and the Society of Women Engineers, SME, are having a virtual career fair taking place this Thursday, August 17th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And this is purely virtual. The promotion states that there's about 30 virtual booths, and it's of no cost to the women that are involved. I encourage you to look at the Women in Manufacturing Association LinkedIn page, and that'll follow the links to that if you would like to register. I think there's still some time. This morning it was still working. So any women that would like to attend that. And for updates and notifications, we encourage you to follow the Industry 4.0 Club on LinkedIn and subscribe to our Substack newsletter, Shaping the Future. Also our website, industry40club.com. So that's it. Everything's done now. And,
I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry, Carol.
no, it's okay. And now we can wish you all a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Take care. Thanks, Mackenzie.